Because, I mean, there's something so powerful about everybody listening to this call right now, something so powerful about you, Emma, and about me that's beyond comprehension. And that's the truth, right? We the offspring of a deathless soul. There's something so powerful about you. But this paradigm, this mental program in the subconscious is stopping this perfection that's already within you from coming to the surface. There's only two sources of reference we can go to understand who you are. One is theology, and the other is science. And both of those sources tell us that you've got infinite potential. But it's the paradigm, the programming, this virus code, so to speak, in the subconscious that's stopping this perfection from bubbling to the surface, from coming to the surface. We have to get the right mentorship. We have to get the correct understanding. And we are definitely not our name. People, I didn't know. I didn't honestly. And I think, you know, you also, your experience was the same. I didn't know who I was. I thought I knew who I was, but I didn't know who I was. I mean, if somebody, I'll give you an example, simple example that anybody listening to us can understand. If you know you shouldn't be eating that piece of cake, you don't want the results it's going to give you on a diet, or you're trying to live a healthier lifestyle, but you go ahead and you eat the cake anyway. Somebody asks you, you know, why did you eat the cake? I thought you're on a diet. And you say, no, I am. So they say, why did you do that? I don't know. So here we are, and this experience, you know, people at the start of every year, they want to get healthier, they want to get fitter, they, you know, get into the gym. You know, it lasts for a couple of weeks. We call them New Year's resolutionists, right? For those of us that have been spent years in the gym, we see every year, January, the first 3-4 weeks, and then the gym empties out again. And that's because people don't understand who they are. If you understand that there's something inside of you, there's this mental program that's running the show, and if you fighting against it consciously and you're trying to shift behavior, you're fighting a losing battle. Once you understand who you really are and how to move that idea from your conscious mind to the subconscious to change behavior effortlessly, until you understand that, people are literally fighting, and we're fighting against ourselves. And this applies to all areas of our lives, from selling to prospecting to contacting investors to, you know, whatever it is that you're doing in your daily activity. A lot of people, or some people, can do things by force, but it's far better to do it effortlessly, to move it into your subconscious so that it aligns with your behavior. And that's all an automatic process. And we have to understand who we are. We have to if we're going to change our results and we're going to change the fruit that we're getting on the outside, we have to understand ourselves. We have to understand what's happening inside before the outside changes.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. But I think another thing that kind of has sprung to my mind as well is that you spoke about kind of, you know, as we get older, we may know more, but we seem to sort of do and achieve less. And it's almost like, you know, I remember when I was much younger, I had these huge goals and these big dreams. And then it seemed that the life kind of battered it out of you, and, you know, maybe school or whatever it was, it kind of seemed to batter it out. And coming into this program, one of the huge things, and it's almost like the number one thing that Bob talks about, is having a massive goal. And it's almost like ripping off those limits that we've put. And it was just amazing. It was almost a jump back in time as a child and allowing myself again to have these crazy big dreams. As scary as that is to even admit it. And yeah, I'm just going for them. And you know what? Whatever happens, whatever comes in that way, but I'm going to keep going. And that's been incredibly refreshing. And it does require, as you say, sort of knowing it. But do you think that that is why, you know, a lot of people tend to find self-help a bit later on? Have we literally been battered down so much, and then this seems like the only other option?
Remember when you were a little kid, you naturally had a highly evolved imagination. Like grade 1, grade 2, you'd come to school, you'd stare out of the window, and your teacher would say, Emma, come back into the room, you're daydreaming again. Or you'd go home and you tell your mom and your dad, you know, I'm going to build a spaceship and I'm going to take my friends. You know, we had these naturally highly active imaginations. But your teacher would say, you know, stop daydreaming, or your parents would say, how are you going to do that? You got to be realistic. So we taught at a very young age to put our imaginations away. And that's why people start setting realistic or logical goals. Now, we've got to have a plan and we've got to kind of know how we're going to get moving. But the thing is, you just go as far as you can see. And when you get there, you can see further. We all know that people who have achieved great things in life all didn't know how they were going to get there. Like classic examples. Edison didn't know how he was going to invent the incandescent light bulb until after he achieved it. Sir Edmund Hillary didn't know how he was going to get to the top of that mountain until afterwards. He failed on the first 2 attempts. He summited that mountain. The third attempt in 1953, and he was knighted by the Queen. You know, everybody who's achieved something of great significance, you know, who's broken barriers, never knew how they were going to get there when they started out. But they lived in this imaginative world. You know, Steve Jobs said you cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. You have to trust that the dots will connect. Now, because we were programmed, Emma, to pack our imagination away, be realistic, that's not, we kind of put ourselves in a box. Like we start thinking, what are we capable of? And I believe that if we really tap into this power inside of us, we're capable of far beyond anything that we can imagine. Napoleon Hill, in this book that Bob Proctor studied for 6 decades, in Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, in this book, he says, the imagination is the most marvelous, miraculous, inconceivably powerful force the world has ever known. That room you're sitting in, that house, was once in someone's imagination. This phone, you know, was once in someone's imagination, you know, the computer. But we get to experience it now in the physical world. So the imagination is truly one of our superpowers, one of our 6 superpowers.
Yeah, amazing. And in fact, you said something when we were speaking earlier that kind of, again, threw me off kilter. You said that Bob Proctor had never had a business plan. Mm-hmm. And of course, we're drummed in, aren't we? And that's the things that you've just been saying. And I knew that you get to a certain vibration and you attract other people on that vibration, or there's definite serendipity or serendipitous things that suddenly seem to crop up, seem to attract. And I think a lot of us shut them down. We close it away. And yeah, this whole imagined reality, you know, I think especially from a property perspective, you see some people, I mean, I'm talking to people that do crazy, massive things. Just think, wow, what? And they're no different to anyone else. They're just normal humans. They just talk about, you know, a few extra zeros, like somebody else would talk about a tenner, and they're talking about millions. And it's, you know, it's having, they just don't have that limit. They haven't limited themselves. So yeah, that was, yeah, massive earlier. And I suppose, is it things happen for us, not to us?
Everything is happening for you, not to you. Yeah, spot on. Remember, we spoke about the conscious, the subconscious, or I've been talking about it all the while in this past 45 minutes. 2 to 4% of your power comes from the conscious thinking mind. So what is a business plan? It's the strategy, right? And 96 to 98% of what you do comes from the subconscious emotional mind. So there was a great author by the name of Neville Goddard. He wrote The Power of Awareness, but he used to say, feeling is the secret. So obviously these individuals that you might be referring to, Emma, they take an idea, whether it's a project or, a particular investment vehicle, whatever, investment vehicle, and they get so emotionally involved with it that they start attracting everything they need for the realization of that. But they live in it. They literally get emotionally involved with it. Meanwhile, there's a lot of us that are bouncing around in the intellectual mind using 2 to 4% of our power. So, feeling is truly the secret. And that's why we've got to understand who we are. We've got to understand how to tap into that subconscious part of us. We have to learn how to tap into the subconscious mind.
So moving into that, obviously the way that we can change our results. I mean, the first thing that just crops up is for those of us who are totally that 4 to 6% of logic. Like I'm just one big ball of logic. So what you're talking about is that such a small, tiny part. And then there's this huge emotional side. So what advice would you give to, somebody like myself who you might look at a property project and logically is kind of like, yeah, is that going to happen? It's like, I've got to see a path. And I know we've spoken before that I do like to have a bit of a route to market. I'm writing a book at the moment and, I really like a framework. But interestingly, even today, a couple of things cropped up that I'd not really thought about. And I thought, that was really useful. It's, I'd not anticipated getting that back from these conversations, but it came out of nowhere. So how do we understand the difference between this logic and this emotion?
So here's a question back to you, Emma. Like if you've been moving in property circles for a decade or 8 years, 10 years. If you've been rubbing shoulders and you've been training and you've been looking at all these strategies and you really understand what you're doing, right? Wouldn't it be better, instead of having a couple of bullet points and writing out to really, say, okay, here's 10 chapters or 12 chapters, these are the titles, and sit down and get into a very calm, creative state, because you've internalized these ideas, and allow the universe to flow to and through you and to write the book through you. I think, don't you think that would be more impactful than sitting and trying to devise a specific plan? Especially if you've been imbibing this knowledge, this information for so long, why not just let it flow through you? Because then when you're doing that, tapping into the subconscious, you're tapping into the emotional, the universal side of you.